yes, you have to plan it as well, but butterflies, you see, they are really very fond of the sweat and the salts that you are exuding. And they go for it. And I remember some very, very strange, beautiful moments at the location where the rafts go through the rapids. They were kind of dangerous and massive, and we built a camp for ourselves, and the technical crew had just one thatched roof on posts, all the rest was open, and we had 8 hammocks parallel to each other. And at night we would have some aguardiente, some sugarcane brandy, and have a few swigs of sugarcane brandy, which attracted a type of butterflies. They are cobalt blue butterflies, and as large as my hand. And I would wake up in the morning, because there were monkeys screeching on the other sides, and the forks would lift, and I would look at all of a sudden, I would have 5 of these butterflies on my hand, and they were just opening slowly and closing their wings. So they do like human contact, or the sweat of humans, and the sugar of the sugarcane brandy. So it's not totally unusual that you have something like this. What is interesting is how human beings are reacting to a presence of a butterfly on their ear, or on their face, or on their hand. There's something miraculous about it, because it shouldn't be like that. We are not acquainted, we are not accustomed that creation is so confident. Other creatures that are untamable, creatures like a butterfly, are so confident that they would settle down on your hand. So it's always a great marvel, and something which is in a way inexplicably beautiful. And I'm saying that without being ever close to romanticism. Something mysterious, very strange and very beautiful. Children like that a lot, and I think when you look at things as if you were still a child, you would all of a sudden see the monumental beauty of a moment like that. And you see a moment like this when you have the monkeys at the end, or a few of those shots. It was always clear when I was shooting it and when I saw it in the editing room, it was always clear, if these shots are not in the film, I have lived in vain. So there's something big about it. And all of a sudden your life makes sense. But of course you have to be lucky as well, let's face it.
Right here.
I have a question that is more, it's more about your worldview rather than filmmaking, although it's certainly connected. I think it would be very easy for somebody to watch a number of your movies and come to a very sort of knee-jerk reaction that Werner Herzog is a pessimist. But when I'm watching your movies, I think something very different. I see you clearly trying to impact people emotionally and intellectually, and probably on much deeper levels than that. And I think that you must be something of an optimist if you feel that you can have an impact on people. Now, I'm setting up maybe some false terminology, optimism, pessimism, but somewhere within that context, can you comment about how you would either agree with that sort of assessment, or maybe you would look at it within a completely different set of terms?
I feel uncomfortable when I try to look at myself. Am I a pessimist or am I an optimist? In fact, I try to avoid looking at myself. It is a fact that I don't look myself in the mirror. I do, but only for shaving, for example. and I don't look into my eyes. I avoid it. Sometimes when you have a cat, and you put a mirror in front of the cat doesn't want to look in its own eyes either. Dogs sometimes, stupidly enough, do it. How can I say? Worldview, I believe, is when you point out that. When I see some of my films, yes, there is apparently a worldview in it. But if we are trying to settle it in between pessimism and optimism, it would really narrow things down very, very much. So I don't feel comfortable with it. And certain things I love a lot, but against my better judgment. Some things in nature, yes, I love the jungle, but sometimes against my better judgment. Very difficult to answer your question, but I understand that you and some others become curious. Yeah. Right here?
I was curious about how you directed your actors or actresses to kind of inhabit their costumes in this film, because at one point you show everyone kind of relaxing when the raptors in the eddy by getting out of their costumes, but Kinski's always stewing and steaming and bristling, and he never gets out of his costumes. Did you coach this in some way? And did you, those moments when you see everyone getting out of the costume, was that part of the film, or was that not part of the film, but you included it anyways in the film?
No, it's an interesting question, because we lived on rafts. What you see is only the shooting raft, but we had 4 or 5 other rafts following a few bends of the river behind. So when the shooting raft, which left in the morning a little bit earlier than the other rafts, would stop, and you couldn't stop on solid land. There was nowhere a place where you could step on land. With the very few exceptions you had, because the jungle was flooded for miles. So they had to tie yourself to some overhanging branches, and then you would wait for the other rafts to catch up with you 10 minutes later. There was no place for changing dress. Yes, well, we had a place in where each one of us had a hammock, and the actors had a hammock. Kinski had some sort of a hammock and a bed and a tent inside of his thatched roof. And he would change into this same kind of Yves Saint Laurent handmade jungle outfit. I mean, it was completely stupid and embarrassing. He felt like braving the jungle, and he was the one who had a Winchester, because he had talked himself into anacondas tackling at night, jaguars leaping at you from an overhanging branch. So the idiot had this rifle all the time and used it, because one evening the extras were laughing because they were playing cards and they were laughing. And he hated that they laughed and shot shots through the bamboo wall of them and shot a middle finger away from one of the players. So it's he had an external costume. I mean, he had the costume that he wears for the movie, and of course you had no time to change much. You would just rot away in the rain, and things would fog over, and the cuirasses got rusty, and it's just a natural decay that you can see. And things decay quickly in the jungle. So some of our people made mistakes. They had plastic bags, and when you have a underwear or your t-shirt or so, and it's all sweaty, they would put it in a plastic bag and tie it, because they thought the ants wouldn't get at it. But in the next morning, the entire plastic bag would be a completely inflated white sort of structure, because some fungi or it looks like sugar that you have at country fairs. It's kind of like wool
Cotton candy.
Candy, yeah. What is it?
Cotton candy?
Yes, yeah. So because your costume or your private dress would all of a sudden catch a fungus and it would sprout like a cloud around it. So costume and private dress was kind of almost indistinct. For a few people like Kinski, it was distinct because he had his. In fact, Yves Saint Laurent made him a jungle suit, so it's sort of an overall.
Right here, Linda Green, and then Fritz.
You speak of sound, which is manifest in this film. It's wonderful sound editing. Mr. Vickers indicated that you produced a German-speaking version of this as well as an English-speaking version. The version we saw tonight, is it in fact overdubbed? The syncing seems to be perfectly in tune with the English. The intonations suggest to me that it might have been overdubbed by other actors. Am I in error on that?
It's a complex question, the dubbing of the film or the language of the film, because the most common language spoken on the set was English and then second Spanish, third German. So most of the film was actually shot in order to make the actors understand each other and react properly to each other. Most of it was shot, in fact, in English. A few things were shot in Spanish. In one moment you have a young native Indian who speaks Quechua, but he remains in Quechua. And then two, a man and a woman in a dugout canoe, they spoke, I do not recall their language, but it was yet another language. And the strange thing is that most of the actors did not speak their own voices in the English version. But Kinski sounds very much like Kinski would sound. And the strangest thing is Kinski, whom I asked to do his own German version, said no, he wouldn't like to do that. He hated the film. He thought it was his worst of all his 205 films. And he said, yes, I'm prepared to come for a dubbing session, but it costs you $1 million. And I said, okay, if you insist on that, and he really seriously insisted on that, I replaced him with a voice that is even better than himself. And the funny thing is Kinski himself saw the film many years later in its German version and was raving about how good he was. He forgot completely that it was not his own voice.